Alright, so we got a massive Esper adjustments along with the patch notes. So I've highlighted a lot of the changes. For Donar, his passive, he now temporarily absorbs his teammate's defense, and it now says a percentage of defense instead of 100% of his defense. So I'm guessing this is lowered because now he also absorbs the teammate's defense, so he's gonna do more damage. So I think the multiplier is gonna be slightly lower. And also his passive ability now won't be affected by any abilities, and the cooldown is also shortened. Now if you notice, he no longer reduced the cooldown when he crits. His S3 didn't get any change. His Resonance 6 did get changed, however. It now instantly applies the Thunder Crack and also gains 2 Thunder Stacks Blessing. So his only main change is this cooldown won't be affected. I don't know if he's going to be any good in PvP. He cannot be countered by Nusi right now, but he still can be countered by stuns, which is his main problem. When he gets stunned, all of this stacks gets removed and he won't do anything. So yeah, I don't know how he's gonna do in PvP. Lewis, his S1, S2 and S3 got attack decrease. However, all of his skills now scales with speed. This is very good for Lewis. Now you can build him with super speed, and he can cycle like crazy because his S3, when you kill an enemy, it reduces all of your ability cooldown by 1 turn. And his S1 also gives him AP up, right? So you build him super speedy, kind of like Sander in a way, and he could pop off like crazy. He also got some changes in his Ascension 4. Previous one was 10% attack, and the new one is 5 speed. Base attribute also got changed. He now has increased speed. Narmer, his only change is that for each buff gain, he now gains 2 stacks of burning stacks instead of 1. I don't know if it's going to be viable with this buff. It's just from 1 burning stacks to 2, and he still requires a bit of stat up for him to really pop off. Liling, now his R2 effect is in his base kit, which is implying defense down on his S2, and his ability 3 also got increased on the max HP damage up to a certain percentage of his attack. And his R2 changes is when he crits with his S2, he will reduce the cooldown of his S3. This could be really good for Liling because he could cycle on his S3 and S2 cycle like mad. Because right now he has 4 turns on his S3 and 3 turns on his S2. So his cycle is going to be S3, S2, and then potentially S3 again, because depending on how many crits you land on his S2. Biondina, her S2 passive got added effect, which is gains Aquatic Sentinel at the start of combat. It is undispellable, and the effect is reduces damage taken from targets with attack below than hers. And then her S3, now the single target, previously was 65% of attack, now it is higher. It's just like a slight buff. It makes her slightly, I think, depending on how much damage reduction she takes from this one, she could be viable again for PvP, because you build her with like all attack, and the enemy's support or defense scaling unit will do less damage to her, so she's sort of like a bruiser in a way. Lucas, his S3, the attack percentage got increased, and also he, upon successfully dispelling, he further reduces the target's AP. His R6 effect got changed from the final hit being AP absorbed to all AP reduction effects have been changed to AP absorption. So instead of gaining just 10% from his final hit, he gains 30% in total because it does 3 hits. Cecilia just got a minor change on her base kit. Her S1 now heals the ally with the lowest HP, which was her previous R2. And then her ability 2, I might be blind, but I don't see any change on her ability 2. I can't tell. I've read this like 10 times and I can't find any changes to it. But her Resonance 2 is now all ability cooldowns for the revive target will be cleared. That is quite massive for a anti-cleave unit. So if the enemy runs like Nusi, you can just AP clear your entire team, and your entire team can anti-cleave the enemy team. And then her R6 effect is now grants them attack up as well. So they're trying to push Cecilia as like a more of an anti-cleave unit. She was already an anti-cleave unit, but now you kind of want to run her with like units like Ggez, any unit that can do massive amounts of damage, right? Because now she grants attack up with her R6, and she also reduces ability cooldown when you get her to R2. Just minor changes to her, won't affect like most players because her base kit didn't really get changed all that much. Now JJ, his S1 now has the sear effect from his R2. It also got an increased attack multiplier, and he also deals true damage based on his HP loss. So yeah, I think his S1 is going to do pretty insane damage. Not only is the attack multiplier getting increased, he now inflicts sear, and he does true damage now. Okay, so his demon mode, his passive. Now, when in demon mode, he gains a shield before taking ability damage, and he also inflicts true damage based on his max HP after dealing damage. So they're trying to push out his damage output even more, because right now in PvP he can't really one-shot anything because of the inflated HP. So with this added true damage based on his maximum HP, he could be the one-shot machine that he was back then. Also, they added this ability cooldown won't be affected by any ability. So Lucy can't counter him anymore. Tolan can't counter him with his Divinate. Elliot can't counter him. Anything that increases cooldown can't affect him anymore, which is also a two-edged sword, because now you cannot run Sachiko with him to reduce his passive ability. You cannot run Ahmed to reduce his ability. Anything that can affect his ability, you can still run Ocean Waves on him, because it says any abilities and not effects. Or sorry, not anything. If it says cannot be affected by anything, then you cannot run Ocean Waves on him. But since it says abilities, you can still run Ocean Waves and still proc Ocean Waves to reduce his passive. His ability 3 also got increased. The attack multiplier got increased, and he also deals extra true damage based on his HP loss. So yeah, they really pushed out his damage multipliers quite heavy. Now I think he should be the one-shot machine he was back then, and his counters, which was ability cooldown increase, now no longer works on him. So yeah, he should be the monster that he once was. His Resonance 2 also got changed. Targets killed in demon mode cannot be revived. This was his previous R6, and he also gains some of the target's attack. So if you do have Resonance 2 JJ, he's like a pseudo Tever. So yeah, that's kind of nice. R6 effect is now attacking in demon mode deals splash damage. Okay, I think his R6 is gonna be broken depending on how OP his single target damage is. Even if it's like 50%, he should be doing like insane amounts of damage. And then some description changes on his abilities. Again, he seems really good. His main problem was cooldown up, and the lack of damage because of the HP inflated, right? HP being inflated, he couldn't really one-shot anything. Not even like DPS at this point. He couldn't even one-shot DPS units. But with this increase in his damage output, he should be doing fine. Okay, Yamato got a pretty significant change. He is now no longer max HP scaling. He is now attack and defense scaling on his S1 and his S3. Or sorry, his S2. His ability to the AP absorption cannot be resisted, which is his current R2, and also consumes all stacks of Rashomon to deal extra true damage. True damage per stack is based on his defense, so that's an added effect. His new R2 is whenever he grants a buff, increases the target's defense. I'm guessing this is up to a certain stack. And phase 2, phase 3 Ascension also got changed. Instead of giving HP, he now gains defense, and attribute distribution changes as well. He gains more defense and lower HP. I don't know how it's gonna be usable. He still doesn't gain an additional turn, which is his main problem. He needs to be R6 for him to really go into his S3 and then S2 combo. Yeah, I don't know if he's gonna be any good. Okay, Javid. His ability 2 got an added effect, which is increases Javid's AP upon landing a crit. Different targets are calculated differently. So he's gonna cycle a lot faster. His ability 3 also got a added effect. If the target's HP is above a certain percentage before the AoE attack inflicts stun. Very good. So he's now an AoE stun unit. Resonance 6 is now Sacred Flame, now grants immunity to sleep and stun. And it dispels all debuffs from Javid instead of dot effects before he launches an attack. So he's kind of like Jinchu in a way. Jinchu is also immune to sleep and I think freeze or stun. So he gets that effect, and he also cleanses himself whenever he does an attack. He is still debuff dependent, so if you don't have him at R6, I don't think he's going to be usable in PvP. Still, in PvE he's going to be better because now he has a stun and also cycles a lot faster as well. Elaine got a slight change on her Night Goddess. Now she straight up gains stealth instead of grants Elaine stealth for one turn at the end of her turn. And then her ability 2 got the attack multiplier increase along with the S3 as well. And yeah, that's about it for Elaine changes. There is some changes to stealth which I will cover in a bit. Ophelia, her base kit now has her R2, which is ability 2. Now if the enemy is not killed, she gains a shield for 2 turns, which is based on her max HP. And then her resonance 2 got changed. After attacking if the enemy has more than a certain number of debuffs, then the butterfly dreams cooldown will be shortened. Butterfly dream is her S3. Depending on how many debuffs it needs, then she could cycle like crazy, because when she does her S3 only has a 3 turn cooldown, by the way. So 3 turn cooldown, you use her S2, you kill the unit, and if the unit has a certain number of debuffs, it will reduce the butterfly cooldown, and then she could go back into the S3 and possibly kill someone else. Her cycle is going to be insane, but I still don't know if she's going to be viable in PvP. Okay, Ashley, I'm surprised they actually buffed her. Her R2 is now more shield, and then her R6 now gains 1 stack of Rainbow Bridge after casting any ability, whereas previously it was just casting her S2. Or sorry, her S1. And yeah, that's all for the changes. Okay, so there's a few changes to status ailments. Bleed got buffed. Now instead of like doing 50% of the debuff caster's attack, the attack multiplier is increased. So Embla is going to benefit from this heavily, because she does a crazy amount of bleed stacks. Units like Camille is going to do a lot. A lot of units are going to be buffed from this, but most importantly is going to be Embla, especially if you have her Divinate. Her Divinate is her S1 inflicts bleed for 2 turns, and whenever you proc the Corrupted Seed, that could also proc a bleed stack. There we go. So yeah, Embla is going to be getting buffed pretty significantly in this bleed changes. Poison also got changed or buffed. Each time poison is successfully inflicted, the target's healing received is reduced. This is massive. Now poison could be more viable in PvP. It was already viable only if you have Hilda. If you didn't have Hilda, you cannot run a poison comp, because you don't do enough damage. The rest of the poison units don't land enough poisons to be significant enough to do damage. Whereas with this current buff, units like Sally will not heal as much. Units like Jin Yu Yao, Ahmed, this is going to be pretty massive for poison. It might be usable to run poison comps in PvP, aside from just Embla, because Kara or Ife is not really usable in PvP. It's still going to be difficult if you don't have like units like Silence unit, Archibald to apply the one swing buff, debuff, which is also a silence debuff. Then it could still be tricky to run a poison comp in PvP, because Jin Yu Yao can just strip all of the poisons back to you, right? And then units like Clara can cleanse it. Sally could also cleanse it. And stealth changes. It got a buff. The carrier's attack won't trigger enemy counter attacks. So previously Elaine, when she casts her S3, this part of the attack, right, clears all enemy stealth effects, won't miss and can't be resisted. Because this is AoE, she can actually proc an Avatara from the enemy. So yeah, it was kind of stupid, even though she wasn't really doing any damage. So now with this buff, she takes less counter attack from the third ability and all of her abilities combined. It's just a slight change, nothing too crazy. Freeze also got changed. Now cannot take action and gain AP up effects. This is actually quite massive. So units like Farah, the current freeze unit that we have, is going to be crazy. Not only does she freeze the enemy, now the enemy cannot gain AP up effect. So if you're running Ethan, if the enemy is running Ethan, you can still run AP push in your team after you apply this freeze, so the enemies cannot gain the AP. And this also helps Long Mian in a sense, because his S3 does apply freeze, because he was completely outshadowed by Parmy. Parmy has the same leader skill as Long Mian and just about the same ability as Long Mian as well. Her S3 stuns, and if you have her R6, she also sleeps, and she also has AP down on her S2 as well, right? So with the freeze changes, it's gonna be very beneficial for Long Mian. He might be better than Parmy in a sense, because now the enemy cannot gain AP up. So yeah, that's it for all the changes. Quite massive changes for some of the units. Some of the units are still, I think, still underwhelming, like Narmer gaining only, instead of gaining 1 stack, he now gains 2 stacks. And also, I don't think Javid is still going to be good for PvP. He might be, he's going to be better for PvE, but just slightly, I think. But JJ, on the other hand, seems kind of crazy with the multiplier increase. He could be the one-shot demon. He could truly be the Berserker unit that we once knew. We'll have to see though. Depending on the multiplier, he could be good, or he could still be underwhelming and still not one-shot a unit, which is his main problem. But his other main problem was getting his ability cooldown increase, right? Now that it cannot be ability cooldown increase, this is actually quite massive. This is a pretty good patch notes because of the balance changes. So Lilith, keep this up. Do balance changes every like couple of months or every couple of patch, and we could still be cooking. Yeah, ciao.